Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or our little shortened title of IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are just conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find almost 300 of them. There'll be 300 by the end of the year that are free to you by going to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, let's see, subscribe to our YouTube channel, be a friend on our Instagram, follow us. Oh, I think it's the opposite. Follow us on Instagram or be a friend on Facebook, I think it is. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Jenny Gardner. Jenny, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you, and we're so excited about this session. Jenny grew up on 600 acres of woods in Kentucky, and parents saw from a young age that she needed a non-typical learning environment. And so they homeschooled her through the 7th grade with the freedom to play outdoors as much as needed. Her professional background is in architecture and early childhood education. And Jenny is going to talk to us today. So let me tell you, in October, which is probably about the time, a little earlier, these will be aired, but in October, the 22nd through the 25th, we're going to be at the IPA USA, it's a Child's Right Now, conference in Louisville, Kentucky. And on Friday of that conference, we're going to be at Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest. And Jenny, we're so happy to know, is the play landscape manager, and she's at Bernheim. And so Bernheim, I can't even tell you, is the most amazing place. And so Jenny's going to talk to us about the challenges of creating new nature play environments. So Jenny, let's go.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Deb. And yeah, we are so excited to be facilitating a day of the conference in October for so many reasons. But one is that we'll get so much time to play on our 17-acre nature playground here at Bernheim Forest. Which we have been in the process of building for years, and it's still ongoing. And we've divided it into phases, and the phases of play get wilder and wilder until you're in essentially 10 acres of just woods where kids can run around and play. And so that was largely the way I grew up. So I'm very familiar with that type of free play. Free play is what we really focus on in our department here at Bernheim, and free play being child-directed, child-led. And we believe that that's essential to childhood development, the development of interpersonal skills, social skills, critical thinking, all of those amazing things. And as you mentioned, my family saw that, as a kindergartner, I was already having some attention difficulties sitting at a desk all day long. And so they thought they'd try something different. And that allowed me the freedom to learn through play and give my brain a different way to absorb information. And so I saw firsthand just how important that type of learning and that type of play was. And so I ended up studying architecture at the University of Kentucky. And I worked for years in residential architecture. But I was lucky enough to be put on a project where I was able to design a nature playground for a preschool in the mountains of Colorado. And that project just blew me away. I had so much fun on it. And that led me to want to explore more about early childhood education. So I left the corporate office life of architectural design, and I became a preschool teacher and ended up designing the playgrounds for one of the preschools that I was at. And this was all happening in Colorado. And it became time for my husband and I to move back to our roots in Kentucky. And I started searching for who's doing this type of work in Kentucky, and I found Bernheim Forest. And it was just a perfect match. So I came on board after our playground here, Playco system, was already underway. But I've been able to be part of the expansions and the building of some new buildings, including our play library, our clubhouse, which is going to be a gathering area. And if you come to the conference, these will all be areas where you can have sessions and play around. But our playground here, Playco system, it's also providing us a testing ground and a proving ground for how to build natural playgrounds, which aids in our consulting work that we do with a number of other organizations and schools in the area, in the region, but also now nationally. We've partnered up with Kaboom and have advised on designing nature playgrounds with them out in the Oakland Unified School District in California. So we're trying to spread the word about how amazing nature play is, and to make it as accessible as possible, because not every kid can come to Bernheim Forest. So by doing this consulting work, we're able to make sure that other kids have access to nature play as well.
And Jenny, have you been involved in Louisville working with child development programs in designing, bringing nature in?
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit about that too? Because how has that work gone? What have been the successes and what are some challenges with that?
Yeah. The there's definitely been some success stories, but there's been some challenges as well.
Always.
Um, Always. So we've worked with a lot of parks and nonprofits in the Louisville area. It's been a little trickier trying to work within school systems,
Mhm.
because school systems are just that. They're systems that, have, um, you know, bodies that
Contract.
they answer to. There's people on maintenance committees and financial committees and all of those things. And so what we've encountered is that there's just there's a lack of knowledge about nature play.
Mhm.
I think, you imagine your traditional school playground and it's manufactured, and that's just what people know. And it's a risk to step outside of that mold. Especially because the safety guidelines that especially early childhood education centers use, they primarily reference the Consumer Product Safety Commission's um, Playground Safety Handbook, which is designed for and by manufactured playgrounds and insurance companies. So it's really just it's a mold that has been so written in such a way that it favors the manufactured playgrounds.
Mhm.
And we're not saying let's do away with all of those playgrounds. We just want to expand the definition of what a playground can be, so that there's more opportunities, more options for kids. So a lot of the challenges we're encountering is just a lack of knowledge about how to implement and how to create a natural playground, um, who can build it, who can design it, and how it can comply to those safety guidelines as well.
And I would say that that's like an article, right?
Yes,
So be thinking about that
yes.
for the new white paper. But if let's say you have a child development program or a park
Hmm.
and they have the standard manufactured equipment, what are some ways that you're infusing more nature elements into those playgrounds that are being successful?
Yeah, so if someone already has a manufactured play set as a part of their playground, and they're not necessarily ready to go full nature playground. What we're often doing is just infusing elements.
Mhm.
And at the most basic level, what we advocate for are loose parts.
Mhm.
So by incorporating stumps and sticks and tree cookies, which are just those slices of a tree trunk, infusing those nature elements on even the smallest scale
Mhm.
is providing what those nature play environments give to children, which is autonomy over their play, the ability to have different tangible experiences, sensory experiences, and um, manufactured play components generally tell the child how to play on them.
How to play and what to do on them. Yes.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so this is a slide, you slide down it. This is a swing, you swing on it. And
Mm.
um, one of the reasons people stray from nature play is the idea that it's maybe less safe. But research is showing us actually that more injuries are occurring on manufactured play components because children are using them in ways they're not intended because they have no autonomy over their play. So they may get bored on those play environments. And so, well, if I'm supposed to do this on a swing, I'm going to try and do this instead. Um, and if I'm supposed to go up these stairs, that's boring. I'm going to try and climb over it this way. And that's where you're seeing injuries occur. So in a nature play environment, there's so much less prescriptive play, and kids get to explore and use critical thinking and create their own methodologies.
Mhm.
And so that's actually where we're finding so much success of nature play.
Oh,
Uh,
that is so wonderful. So how I I mean, in Kentucky you have lots of trees,
yes.
right? But if I live in an area, and I'm thinking about Colorado because I was in Colorado for 25 years. So
Okay.
that's another thing that we share in common.
Yeah.
I was in Denver and in Colorado Springs. And most of
Okay.
the times I can't wait to hear which playground you did because I probably knew the people.
Oh,
Um,
great.
the in Colorado, we have primarily aspens and evergreens, right?
Right.
So uh, occasionally you'll see an oak, but
Yeah.
it's been planted. It's not indigenous.
Right. Exactly.
It's not in Colorado. Um, so sometimes I think people go, "Oh, I really want tree cookies," but how do I find them if I don't have, you know, oaks and aspens and, other things,
Right.
good, good materials who, and I think this is the big peep, like I have tons of tree cookies in
Mhm.
my classroom, tons,
Mhm.
but I also have a college that's surrounded by forests.
Right.
And so we have maintenance people who have those things that can make the tree cookies that I can then take and dry. Right.
Exactly.
And so I think it's where do I find these things?
Right.
How do stumps? I tell my students all the time, in the spring, you're going to see tons of stumps on the side of the road for someone to come and take them.
Mhm. Yes.
They're
Yes.
free and
Exactly.
then bury them at different heights and different
Yep.
distances in your playground. And that gives children a piece of nature that's also something different.
Exactly.
But so how do they so I think when we say let's bring nature in, I think people go, but I don't have anybody that can do that.
Right.
How can we help them that way?
Yeah. Yeah, and your geographic location has a lot to do with that, right? So, the playgrounds that I did help with in Colorado, we were utilizing a lot of rocks and boulders because that's what you
In
have.
the mountains, yeah.
Yeah, and so, it's not just necessarily confined to wood material. Sand pits are fantastic, and whenever those are suggested, there's two main concerns that come with sand pits. One is neighborhood cats and animals using them, and another one is the mess. But I will say the benefits of sand play far outweigh having to take 5 minutes to make sure there's, no cat feces in it in the morning, or shaking out shoes when you come in. So those are, non-wood items you can use, but also, there are a number of companies these days that are creating packages of natural play materials that you can buy online or out of a catalog. So for those that really want these items and can't source them another way, there are those options. And, that's falling into that mold a little bit that people are more familiar with, of that point and pick out of a catalog for your play elements. But
And
sometimes,
could you share some of those websites with me, and I'll stick them in
yeah.
the write-up?
Yeah, I will share those. And then what we also recommend though is building relationships with local arborists, local maintenance people, tree work people. Kind of like you said, you see a stump and you ask, and we do that with boulders that are being pulled out for construction sites. We'll be driving down the road, we'll see construction happening, and they're excavating all of these large rocks, and it never hurts to ask. So, we ask, and 9 times out of 10, people are like, sure, you can take it if you can haul it off. And so, generally, what that requires is maybe we have to rent the equipment that will haul that material off. Um, but sometimes construction crews will be hauling it away anyways. They're happy to drop it at your site.
Mhm.
So it takes a little bit of creative thinking, talking to an arborist company and being like, hey, do you guys have a scrap yard? Or, when you're hauling this away, can I come get some of these pieces?
Mhm.
So it's a lot of it is building relationships, being willing to, walk up to a job foreman and saying, hey,
Hey,
what do you plan on doing with that rock over there? So there's more than one way to go about it.
yeah, and I think that the benefits of having those boulders, and I'm thinking of the boulders in Colorado,
Yeah.
the 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 amount of physical development, balance, spatial awareness,
Yes.
all of those, both cephalocaudal as well as their propria, I can't even remember the rest of it, um, development in that physical development is just boulders and rocks, big rocks that they can climb
Yes.
on are amazing.
Absolutely.
Receptive, that's it. Proprioceptive. It took me a minute to
'Cause it's
bring it.
not just that flat surface step to one to another.
No, it requires so much internal balance
Exactly.
and strength to climb up those rocks versus holding on to the bars of going up the ladder to the slide.
Exactly.
And so, okay, so great ideas about finding. Even nurseries sometimes have
Yes.
things that you can get, even to
Yes.
bring in an area of the playground that has some plants that are indigenous to
Yeah.
that area that would attract birds or attract um, insects that they can watch
Yes.
and view and enjoy. It's, oh
Yes.
my goodness.
Incorporating raised beds, especially because then it's more at the kid's height,
Mhm.
and you can build curricula around that if that's part of what you're doing in your program. But it also is just such a beautiful free play opportunity for kids to be observing nature like that.
Mhm.
You do have to get the advice of, maybe a local gardener or landscaper on what types of plants will be resilient around kiddos playing, depending on the age group and all of that. Um, so, we often advise the groups we're working with on types or ages or sizes of plants and trees, to make sure that they're getting a fighting chance when they're being installed in a play area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when I did my work in China over 2 summers, every playground, and please know that because China has so many children, I mean, their child development programs are 350 children.
Mm.
But every playground is enormous, as
Wow.
big as an elementary school.
Wow.
And they have tons of nature. They, there are trees
Yeah.
everywhere. There are wooden pieces that children that they can use as balance beams that
Yeah.
are everywhere. There's a koi pond always, and it has no fence around it.
Hmm.
So children can get up as close as they can to that
Can
koi
you
pond.
imagine?
Oh my goodness. It's truly amazing.
Yeah.
They grow crops.
Wow.
So they always have a garden, and the children based on the ages are responsible for a certain piece of the garden, and the cook uses what
Mm.
they grow in the cooking. So it's that whole beautiful cycle. But every one of them, and I went to many, every one has a nature elements. Everybody had a koi pond
Mm.
with no fence.
Yeah.
Everybody was growing um, plants and produce and berries and corn. I saw lots of corn and squash and vegetables and flowers because
It's
the playgrounds
beautiful.
were lovely.
Mm. Wow.
And so think about how what you could do to give children that
Oh,
access to nature
yes.
as a baby step. We've been
Yes.
talking baby steps all day
Right. Right.
in the porch play chats, how to do that. Anything else that they can do? What other ideas about infusing nature into a playground that may have that stationary equipment?
Yeah, I think well thinking about like trees and things like that for shade,
Mm,
our instinct is, a shade sail or some type of umbrella or something. But yeah, putting in a tree for shade, that is the kind of original shade sail.
yes.
Um and a part of the work we do with people we're doing designs for is we can create a solar study and of their geographic location to show them, if you put these trees here, this is the shade they will provide. And because I think that's another part of what makes so many playgrounds unpleasant is you think about the heat and they're
Mhm.
just these kind of barren areas. And so part of it is adding shade, so a diversity of, temperatures and things like that. Also topography. Um,
Mhm.
so that's something we've been incorporating into our designs lately. Instead of thinking about a playground as just a flat square, bringing in some extra fill soil and adding some hills, some rolls to the landscape. And again, you think about balance and kids being able to move over different topography, how great that is for gross motor skills, but also just making the landscape seem more varied because in nature nothing is a perfect flat square or rectangle. So just the what it does for your perception of an area when it's a more organic shape and the land rolls and moves and it's not just flat. That's another part that's different than just, putting in trees and stumps and things like that.
And to do that, I mean, think about how many of you ever rolled down a
Yeah,
grassy hill. Oh my goodness, that was so much fun.
so
And
fun.
and running up and down that grassy hill.
Right.
So much fun and such great development as
Yes.
they're going up and down. It's like, oh, they can't go up the slide because, the rule is they have to go down the slide. And I'm like, so much more development happens, different development happens when
Hmm.
they go up versus down.
Absolutely.
And so, I think it's those and I love the slides that are built into the hills
Yes,
are available, but children can do other things on those hills
exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
Anything else you'd like to share with us about why bringing nature in is, I, I find nature very calming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you have children that may not have access to nature because maybe they can't go out in their neighborhood to play,
Hmm.
ooh, it's amazing the gift you can give them to bringing it in for them.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the effects that it has on kids with attention difficulties, or a number of things. It's nature is so healing.
Hmm.
And so we definitely advocate for more time out there, as as much as possible. Another way that we're encouraging that is by incorporating outdoor classrooms into our natural play environments.
Yes.
So, being out there while you're doing the other things that aren't as free time or play focused.
Mhm.
And I think often the worry is that kids will be too distracted to focus when they're outside, but I think it's quite the opposite. Um, and yeah, I think as far as other challenges, we mentioned some of the licensing and safety guidelines.
Mhm.
Um, Especially for early learning centers that are licensed. They often use these safety handbooks as a part of their licensing requirements. And so I think that that deters a lot of people from implementing nature play, because they just don't know how it relates to the handbooks and to the guidelines. So we are in the process of working with some partners to try and rewrite some of those guidelines and to create a parallel handbook, so it translates for people
Mhm.
how these guidelines might work in a natural play environment. So we're referencing the literature, but we're saying this is how it would work in an area with rocks and stumps and logs, and things like that. And so it takes a little bit of that legwork from people who are trying to figure out, you know, how does this work? How can this apply to licensing requirements?
Mhm.
So we are looking into that with some partners, and I think that'll take one of the barriers out of the way, because that's one of the biggest concerns is the safety and the risk.
Yes, and I hear that
Yeah,
often. Oh, we can't do that. Licensing would never let us, or the
right.
playground inspector won't approve that, or
Exactly.
and so I think it's those system barriers that we do need to like tackle.
Yes. Yes.
And like in Washington State, they have the nature play licensing rules and regs that are totally different from
Yeah.
the stationary child care programs licensing. Are they perfect? No. Are they a step in the right direction? Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is also giving those nature based programs opportunities to make their program available to more of the population.
Exactly.
So, I think there are pros and cons to having a nature-based preschool licensed,
Yep.
but the pros are you have additional revenue coming in and can serve vulnerable children. And the cons are that it's still more restrictive than we would want it to be. And
Sure.
so it's the I think it's the rules that are put in place with folks who may not have early childhood background, they're regulators.
Right.
And so it, they're really focused more on safety,
Exactly.
sometimes when what they're focused on isn't necessarily unsafe. So,
Yes. Exactly.
or they never played in a forest, right?
Right.
So
Right.
they have no context, no prior experience. And so they go, oh my God, the sticks, they'll poke their eyes out. And I can hear my mom saying that in my head, oh, oh my goodness, they can't possibly climb on those rocks. They might scrape their knee or fall. And,
Right.
that's part of life.
It is. It's that saying, like, maybe better a broken bone than a broken spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more people are starting to consider following what many European countries and Australia, New Zealand, a lot of other places are doing, is that risk benefit analysis,
Mm-hmm.
using that as more of a standard for safety guidelines when looking at different play components. So, yes, there may be risks associated with this, but are they outweighed by the benefits that the child receives by playing in this environment?
I'm trying to think what Rusty Keeler, the phrase Rusty Keeler used it. He did a porch play chat and we talked about this. It was the risk benefit analysis, but it was instead of intervening immediately,
Mm,
if you see something that you think might be too risky or
right.
might be hazardous, stop and
Mm,
ask yourself, is it really hazardous,
right.
or are they trying to try something that is a little risky? And there's a huge difference between risky and hazardous.
Exactly. We definitely differentiate between those. We say that we design hazard out of the playground, but we design risk in
Mm-hmm,
because appropriate amounts of risks are how children learn.
mm-hmm,
And I think, unfortunately, the needle has swayed too far the other way, where we have designed any possibility of risk out of play environments.
mm-hmm.
And so, if children aren't given the opportunity to attempt to navigate risk, what we then have is, kids going off to college or whatever without the skill sets to navigate risk.
Yes.
So risk is a beneficial thing. Hazard is what we don't necessarily want in the play environment.
And I think the play workers have figured that out, right? So
Yes.
the people who have gone through play work training, which is very, very popular in
Yeah.
Europe and United Kingdom and in the Scandinavian countries, hazards are what you need to bring the children's attention to. Oh, did you notice
Yes.
that? Be careful of that branch because that branch has a crack in it. So that's a hazard, right?
Right.
Something that they could harm themselves on. But a risk is something that their body is telling them they need to try because they're ready for it. Yeah, I mean, you don't take a child and put them on the, third limb of a tree.
Right.
They climb up to that third limb and they've learned skills to that
Exactly.
it was a risk, but they're gaining those skills. And so sometimes I think that we say, oh, here, let me help you. And you push them up. And then that's when we might have injuries
Yeah.
because they haven't learned the skill set that they need to be able to climb that tree safely. Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness. We had pecan trees. I had 6 pecan trees, huge, enormous, higher
Oh,
than the
wow.
house. I was
Oh,
way
yeah.
up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And my mom didn't have well, she might have had a heart attack in the house, but she never kept me from doing it.
Right. Right.
So, sometimes we just have to take a deep breath and recognize that risk is necessary for healthy development.
Absolutely.
Or, you're right. When they go off to college, they're going to be taking risks because they don't have that barrier telling them they can't, and they're going to risk really dangerous things. So we have
Exactly.
to
The stakes are higher then.
much higher,
Yeah.
much, much higher. So risk is important and necessary. Anything else you'd like to talk about, Jenny, before we close out? This has been amazing. I'm glad we got ideas, and you're going to send me those
Yes.
places where people can start buying these natural materials.
Yes, because I think that is a good point. Depending on your location, you may not have access to some of this stuff. So,
Mhm.
um, I think the popularity of nature play is growing, and because we are in a capitalist society, companies are like, well, all right, let's create these
Okay.
things and let's sell them. So, which is great for people that can't access those things. So I will definitely attach those links, as well as the ideas, for how to source them on your own.
Yeah.
Because with some creativity and a little courage and willingness to ask people, you can find a lot of great stuff on your own too.
You can. I mean, I went to where they throw away the tires that
Mm.
then go into a landfill these days.
Yes.
I went to when I had a child development program, I wanted big tractor tires to put on the playground so that
Yeah.
kids could climb in and out of them.
Right.
And it's not, I mean, it's rubber,
Yeah. Well,
but I
we
mean, rubber's made from trees. So,
we're incorporating a lot of recycled materials as well.
yeah,
And for us, it's what is the play value
yeah.
of this material? So, even things like milk crates, the forts that kids build out of these are just amazing. So I think, the play value is always the number one consideration. And yeah, tires,
Oh,
milk crates, those things are fantastic.
and they're happy because they have to take them off to a place. So
Right,
I had
right.
a parent that had a big, huge pickup truck, and I would go to the where the tractor tires were, and I would say, "Are there any of these you're getting ready to send to the landfill?" And they'd say, "Oh yeah, we've got 5 of them that are going." And I said, "Could I have 2 of them for free?"
Yeah,
And they said, "Well, yeah, but you'll have to come get them." I said, "Not a problem." And
exactly.
that it was amazing. And we would bury tires in the playground
Mhm.
at different heights, and I got all those tires for free. It's just the
Yeah,
labor that you need to worry about, and that's what parents are for, right?
exactly.
So to help you. Okay, Jenny, thanks so much. Stay right there while I close this out.
Sounds
To
good.
learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.